What has McDonald's coffee, the card game Top Trumps, and buying a car all got in common when it comes to either saving or wasting money? Right, let me just explain to you what I'm talking about. Yesterday I was inspecting a vehicle. It was quite a way out into the country, and when I was on my way back I felt like having a coffee. So I popped into McDonald's. I know I said coffee, bear with me here. And when I was waiting for my coffee, I was listening to the barista behind the counter who was making my coffee, and she was talking about the card game Top Trumps. Now, if you have never played that before, you don't know what you're missing out on. I used to love this as a kid. I've got heaps of these. Look, this one is special vehicles. This is cars of the future. And also we've got buses. Yes, buses. Look at it. Don't ask me why, probably my least played one. I had cars and trucks and, all sorts of stuff, but mechanical stuff, steam trains, there's another one, all sorts of stuff. It was great fun. And anyway, this game is all about the Top Trump, all right? Now, what this game, let me just explain to you how this works. Let me just pop that one out. See, this is a recovery truck, and you've got a truck, and then you've got all these details below. The name of the game is to win all the cards by naming the top item compared to everyone else's cards. Okay, so what you basically do is you would call something out. For example, in this case you might say engine capacity, and it's a 14 litre according to this, and then everyone else would read out what they've got, and whoever gets the highest wins the cards. Right, now inside of that there's always a Top Trump card. See the Top Trump card? It is beatable, but it is less beatable than all the other cards that you've got. And the way that you can play this game is you can look at this and you can just randomly call out whatever the highest number is on the on the card. The thing is, just because it's the highest number doesn't mean to say that it's going to win, nor does it mean to say that it is the best one to play or the best figure to put out there. Now, this game is great fun with kids. Now, you can learn an awful lot of stuff, but ultimately it's about winning the best. It's about winning all of the cards. Now, you can do it by chance, or you can learn about the vehicles. You can get to know what their attributes are. And whilst you don't know what other people's are, you do know what might be the best one. Like, it might be a very long vehicle compared to most of the other vehicles. So that would give you a better chance of winning than something else. So length, 27 metres, that's quite long. Engine capacity, 38 litres. Litres and metres, sort of goes together. It's got 24 cylinders. It's all quite big. But then you've got the height, which is 2 metres. And 2 metres isn't that high compared to, say, a recovery truck, or they've got in here dump trucks and all sorts of stuff, crane. All right, it's just not as tall as them. So the game can be had with a bit of fun, but ultimately it's about knowing what your vehicle is best at with the figures compared to the others. If you know that, you can actually win quite easily, particularly against kids, because they don't really understand it. Now, the question that the lady had inside is she didn't understand how this game worked. Now, I know this was probably more popular in my youth, but she was basically read the rules and said, I don't get it. I said, it's pretty simple. The top number wins. And she said, but how do you know that? Because it sort of says it in the name of the game. The top one trumps everything else. Top trumps. So you might be wondering, why doesn't she know this? She can make great coffee, and she did actually. She made a really good coffee. But why didn't she know that, how to play a simple card game? It's quite simple. And I said to you, right at the very beginning of this, what has it got to do with buying a car and saving or wasting money? Let me put it like this. When you go and buy a car, like you go and buy a card game, the barrier to entry is really low, all right? You rock up with your money, $2, $5, whatever it is these cost, or you go to buy a car, and all you have to do is put your money down, and it's yours. You've got it. That's the car, right? Doesn't take a lot of genius to be able to do it, and you can go out there and just buy any vehicle. But here's the kicker. A car isn't a car by itself. See, a car is actually a multiple different systems all put together to make that car, and they all interact with each other. And knowing how the systems work and knowing what they're supposed to do, it actually makes a big difference to whether that car is worth, say, 10,000 or 5,000 or 50,000 or 25,000. So if you don't know the differences, or if you can't recognize what is working and not working, then you can waste a lot of money. Bit like the top trump cards, in that you can compare it against the cards you have and maybe the cards you've seen. Maybe you've seen a few cards. You might be holding 7 cards. But unless you've compared it against all of the cards, you probably don't really know how to play the game. The barrier of entry is really easy. You just get some cards. But actually winning at the game really takes knowing the vehicle and knowing all the different types of vehicles and how those attributes work. So when you go to buy a vehicle, there's all these different systems, and you're probably only going to compare it against your last car, or maybe the car that your mum and dad had. Or you might take somebody along with you to have a look, and they might compare it against the 3 or 4 cars that they've had. The thing is that you don't really know, or it's hard to compare against the two. You might be able to pick some things, but not everything. So what has that got to do with me inspecting vehicles then? Well, I've been inspecting vehicles for a really long time, and I know the systems inside and out. I know what they're supposed to do. I know how they work and how they operate. I also know how they interact against each other. I know the rough costs of things, although sometimes, there's items that can surprise you. But as a general rule, I've been inspecting and working on vehicles for 20 years. I'm not comparing a vehicle against the 1 or 2 other vehicles that you've had or I've had. I'm comparing it against thousands of vehicles that I've worked on and that I've seen. Do you think that I've got a better chance of picking a vehicle that's good or bad than somebody who has only had 1 or 2 vehicles and that's their experience? The same as the top trumps. The lady is great at making coffee. Absolutely brilliant. It was a really nice coffee. But when it actually comes to playing the game, to playing a different game, she didn't understand it. She wasn't experienced in it. And it helped having me there to say, hey, this is how the game works, and explain to her how to do it, maybe even how to win it. It actually helps, right? So having somebody to inspect a car for you, or a truck, a van, bus, caravan, whatever it is, who's got that experience, who isn't just comparing it against one thing, one other vehicle, they're comparing it against thousands of other vehicles, you can actually get a report that says, hey, all this stuff is good. This is all interactive. It's a good buy. And sometimes you might find that you might have many different faults on a car, but none of them really affect the value of the car, because either they're very easy to fix, or they just don't affect mostly the operation of the vehicle. There's other things where you might only have one fault in the car, and knowing that one fault, you're going to want to walk away. And it might not be obvious either. And that's the thing. Over time, you get used to actually seeing things. You can look at a bolt and go, that bolt's loose, and you can see it from a mile off. Not only that, you can look at it and go, not only is that bolt loose, but I've noticed there's a crack right next to it, and it's about that thin. You can barely see it with your eye, but I can see the crack. And you can probably see it because maybe there's a bit of rust coming from it. And it's really odd to see rust coming out from a chassis from just from a line that's coming down. It's little things that you pick up and you go, yeah, that might be problematic. Okay, a cracked chassis, not good. So it's these things with experience that you go, okay, that's what it is. And when you get a vehicle inspection, that's what you're buying. You're buying experience. You're buying a comparison of thousands of different vehicles to make sure that the one that you want to purchase is worth it and is in good condition and it's roadworthy. And that's what you're buying. And it's not a lot of money either when you compare that to the fact that your vehicle could devalue really quickly if there's something wrong with it. Either you have to pay for it to be fixed, or somebody else won't want to buy it, or nobody else wants to have it, and you could get stuck with it too and lose lots of money. So anyway, McDonald's coffee, super top trumps, know the cards. Don't just play the top number. That's how you win. And how you win at buying a car is getting someone to inspect it who knows what they're talking about. Okay, if you've got a friend that's a mechanic, that's great. Get them to have a look. We look at even more than just the mechanics that a lot of mechanics look for. So, if you want to call us, All In Vehicle Inspections, that's in South Australia only at the moment. And we can go and inspect a car for you. And it's great. And we will compare it against thousands of vehicles, not just 1 or 2. Catch you later. Have fun.